As a general rule, animated movies are aimed at children. There are a few exceptions. You have to imagine that many a parent has innocently made the mistake of letting their son or daughter watch Sausage Party or Fritz the Cat and regretted it almost instantly. But on the whole, the target audience of animated movies is the younger generation. That being said, the people responsible for the creation of those animated offerings are all too aware that parents are dragged along to watch them. With that in mind, there are often times in such movies that kids won't get, that the adults watching will understand and enjoy. That's what we're gonna look at in this video. Here are 10 memorable animated movie moments that only adults will understand. Oh, and by the way, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and join the notification squad to make sure that you're always up to date with our great new videos. And before we start, can you guess the movie from these emojis? Stay tuned for the answer at the end of our video, and be sure to keep watching for fun trivia questions and fun facts along the way.
You be a good boy, Leonard.
The Secret Life of Pets. Where to start with this one? 2016's The Secret Life of Pets was advertised as being sweet and innocent, but when parents took their children to see it, they had more complaints about it than pretty much any supposedly child-friendly animated movie that came before it. Seriously, look online. Parental forums are full of negative comments about this movie. The whole film just seemed to be perceived as too dark for children. There are, after all, a group of discarded pets in the movie who hate humans with a passion and boast about murdering humans with, amongst other things, spoons and a blender. But there are also some moments that only adults would understand in terms of their greater meaning. One such moment is the introduction of Snowball. To children, Snowball is just a resentful white rabbit who leads the group of discarded pets. But adults recognize him as a sloppily executed, highly offensive, and stereotypical allegory for violent, militant African American men. Even the fact that he's a white rabbit called Snowball doesn't hide that. It's enough to offend even adults. Let us know in the comments what you thought about that character. The Jungle Book. Rudyard Kipling's The Jungle Book is one of literature's most beloved tales. The 1894 story has been adapted across various media over the years, mainly by Disney. And no adaptation is more iconic than the 1967 animated film. The story, of course, is about a young boy named Mowgli who was abandoned by his parents and subsequently raised by wolves. He lived a peaceful existence in the jungle. Well, that is until the man-eating tiger known as Shere Khan returned and threatened Mowgli's life, at which point the story becomes his quest to get to safety. This safety involved Mowgli leaving the animals who raised him and opting instead to live with humans. While his return to the man village seems triumphant on the surface, and one that any child watching would celebrate, adults understand that there's actually a little bit more to the message. It's actually telling people to stick with their own kind, and in a post-colonial Britain, that's a tad too close to home, and also scarily reminiscent of the views of a certain American politician. The Good Dinosaur. 2015's The Good Dinosaur is by no means one of Disney Pixar's best offerings, but it's still a fun and charming tale for all the family to enjoy. The movie is set on a fictional Earth in which dinosaurs never became extinct because the asteroid that would have otherwise caused their extinction passed safely over the planet, rather than crashing into it and causing devastation. The story follows a young Apatosaurus named Arlo, who meets an unlikely human friend named Spot while traveling through a rough and enigmatic landscape. That all sounds nice. But the scene in which the two main characters began to bond with each other received very different reactions from adults than it did from children. Arlo and Spot eat some fermented fruit and start hallucinating, essentially going on a psychedelic drug trip. To any kids watching, it was just a hilarious, wacky scene, but adults watching knew that was actually suggesting that mutual casual drug use is a great way to form the basis of a friendly relationship. That's not really appropriate, is it?
No. I suppose he must have...
Alice in Wonderland. Speaking of drugs, we now arrive at one of fiction's outright most classic tales in the form of Lewis Carroll's Alice in Wonderland. The story has been adapted several times on stage and screen, most notably in the form of the classic 1951 Disney animated movie, but also as a 2010 live-action version, which was also made by Disney. To children, Alice's journey down the rabbit hole is an adventure to a fun, crazy place with interesting characters. But when you watch it as an adult, it's very different indeed. It's hard to pin down a single moment though, because it's basically just one giant drug trip. Let's look at the evidence. There's the cake that makes you tall when you eat it, the drink that makes you small when you drink it, there's a perpetually high, drowsy smoking caterpillar, there's a floating cat, and there's an insane man with crazy eyes and a top hat. Yeah, that definitely sounds pretty trippy. Boss Baby. The entire premise of 2017's Boss Baby seems to be that of the titular character is a baby-fied version of Donald Trump, which, come to think of it, just makes him like, well, the adult Donald Trump. And only adults will really understand that. But there are a number of other scenes in the movie that children won't understand. For example, there's one scene in the movie in which the 7-year-old Tim, the older brother of the titular baby, seems to be drinking a Long Island iced tea. To any children watching, it might just look like a soft drink. And even the name iced tea sounds like it should be a soft drink. But it's actually a cocktail consisting of vodka, tequila, light rum, triple sec, gin, and a teensy little bit of cola. We're pretty sure the pre-adolescent boy shouldn't be drinking that. Before we move on, here's a question for you about Boss Baby. Which former superhero actor voices the adult Tim and narrates this movie? Stick around until the end of the video and we'll let you know the answer. Who Framed Roger Rabbit? We now come to a movie that isn't strictly animated, but it was a mixture of live action and animation, so we're happy to include it here. And the movie in question is 1988's Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Christopher Lloyd's Judge Doom was certainly a terrifying villain, but on the whole, Who Framed Roger Rabbit is a child-friendly movie. However, when you think about it, after viewing it with adult eyes, it does have some underlying themes that make for some controversial moments. The movie sees audiences introduced to Toontown, a literal town that is frequented by toons, who have normal jobs but are only allowed to have them in Toontown itself. Moreover, there's a place called the Ink and Paint Club where toons perform to a strictly human-only audience. It's all really reminiscent of racial segregation and white people and black people being split into different areas and roles, just like the bad old days.
I guess this is it.
The Brave Little Toaster. The title of 1987's The Brave Little Toaster makes it sound like the most innocent movie in existence. It really does sound like it couldn't be aimed at anyone other than children. But it's about as dark a kids movie as you could possibly imagine, and there are a number of moments that only adults will understand the real message of, because it's actually one big allegory of the afterlife. It has some moments that are pretty chilling at face value to begin with, the car crusher, the suicide attempts, the evil clown nightmare, and so forth. But adults will notice that the whole story is indeed basically a metaphor for the acceptance of death. When you hear Toaster and his buddies talking about seeking out their master, it's very clear that the master is actually a metaphor for God. Their journey is teeming with Christian allegories. Their repair is the equivalent of resurrection, and they even sing a song called City of Light, with lyrics like "Let us meet the master, and he will open up the gate." It's pretty darn bleak, so it's a good job kids watching it don't get it to that extent. Toy Story 3. We now move on to a movie that actually featured multiple animators who worked on the aforementioned The Brave Little Toaster, so it should come as no surprise that it also featured a number of moments that were interpreted by adults as something far darker than the movie appears to children. The movie in question is 2010's Toy Story 3, and believe it or not, it seems to double up as an allegory for the worst event in human history, the Holocaust. While that may sound extreme, the parallels are pretty blatant. What seems like toys being left behind when Andy goes to college can easily be seen as Jews being forgotten when the Third Reich advanced across to Europe. Buzz suggesting sanctuary in the attic is a very obvious reference to the story of Anne Frank. The Sunnydale Daycare Center is very similar to a concentration camp, and the furnace, very similar to the final solution from World War II. That's really dark. I don't know about you, but I'm thinking kids shouldn't be watching Toy Story 3 anymore. Frankenweenie. 2012's Frankenweenie is a typically bizarre Tim Burton movie about a young boy named Victor who learns how to resurrect dead house pets using electricity. Seems like kind of a crazy concept a child would find amusing, right? Well, that's certainly true, but looking at the movie through adult eyes, it becomes a poignant lesson on how to accept death as a natural part of the life cycle. The moment that makes this stand out more than any other is when Victor's classmates learn that reanimation is possible and try to resurrect a number of dead animals, which turns them all into hideous monsters. Adults understand that the moral for any kids watching is that as sad as it may be, you have to move on when a loved one, animal or otherwise, passes away. Because, resurrecting them might turn them into a were-rat or a horrifying amphibious humanoid or something. Well, you get the point.
And his name was Maui.
Moana. 2016's Moana is without a doubt one of Disney's biggest triumphs to date, and that's no mean feat when you consider some of the classic movies the media giants have released throughout movie history. And for the most part, it's child-friendly and easy to understand for its target audience of children. There are, however, some moments that only adults will understand. For starters, there are a couple of instances of implied profanity. For example, when Maui traps Moana in a cave and she says,
"Slimy son of a—"
And the movie also has kids questioning exactly what gods and demigods are. But it's a more serious issue that we're going to focus on in this particular entry. In Moana, Maui is abandoned by his parents, thrown into the sea and left for dead, prompting the children watching to ask why on earth any mom and dad wouldn't want their baby boy. Of course, the whole throwing him into the sea thing was incredibly harsh and extreme. But the reality is that not all parents want children or can cope with the responsibility of looking after them. Adults understand that. Even adults that love their children dearly and take them to watch movies like Moana at movie theaters as a treat. But the world is a cruel place and not every child is so lucky. Wait a second, does anybody actually know what the definition of demigod is? You've lasted this long, so you've earned the answer to the boss baby question that we asked you at the start of the video. The answer is Tobey Maguire. That's right, the star of Sam Raimi's Spider-Man trilogy is the man who voices the adult version of Tim and narrates the movie. Well, thanks for watching our video about 10 memorable animated movie moments that only adults will understand. We hope you enjoyed it. And the answer to the movie emoji is... Well, did you get the right answer? Let us know in the comments below, and make sure you subscribe to our channel and sign up for notifications so you never miss an upload. If you like this video, check out our buddies over at CBR. Their videos cover the entire pop culture spectrum and are just as great as ours.